I've been teaching professionally for over 20 years, and I have over 120 courses on LinkedIn Learning. It's a really fulfilling career, but it does have a few challenges. One of them is staying up to date with everything that is new. That's especially challenging in the age of AI, which is moving so fast that it's really unbelievable. So today, I'm talking to Deepak Goyal, someone who, like me, believes in the power of continuous learning and teaching as a career. Now, he's done live classes specializing on Azure and cloud data, and he ranks super high on Google and in other platforms. He has a LinkedIn course called Introduction to Data Warehouses, which is already doing over 10,000 users. So, Deepak, you're both a technology professional as well as a teacher. How did you get started in technology, and what made you make that decision to take on teaching as well?
Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, yeah, I can hear
Yeah.
you. You all right? Yeah. So,
Yeah. So, honestly, I did my engineering and then I get into this IT industry. So that was the my first step into the IT industry,
mhm,
doing the job, and that's
mhm,
where I started doing the IT thing. Over a period of time, I I worked on a lot of technologies. Like I started my career with the Java, then I started doing the big data slowly. I
mhm.
loved data, and then from last over a decade, and so I keep learning everything into this data engineering space only, and I dedicated my life to the data. So that's how I started in the data world.
Mhm. So you really enjoy basically just doing the job, right? You really enjoy data, big data. You got started in the industry. What then made you want to start teaching others and taking on doing courses and social media and that type of thing?
Honestly, I love to teach people
Mhm,
since my college days, but I was not having any platform. So I was like, in some time I was doing like an offline thing, but
mhm,
the spark get initiated after the post COVID. So it's like around 2020, so almost like
mhm,
3 years ago. Like I was at home, honestly, like everyone in the world. So we got locked down into the home, and then I thought of like, let's share something, and I
mhm,
started with writing the blogs. So I was trying to teach people through my blogs. So I have a and fortunately I got very lucky on my first blog itself, and it got famous like anything, and I got ranked on the first page of Google for many keywords around the Azure and data engineering space. And that's
mhm,
where I thought like, let's take it to the next level. And from blog I moved to the writing on the LinkedIn,
mhm.
and then the history. And the rest is simply a history where like I got so much love from a lot of people across the world, and talking about they love my content, and then slowly I get into the teaching, and then, as I said, rest is history.
That's amazing. So I love one thing that you said because this is the same thing that happened to me. That even
Yeah.
when I was in high school, I was always helping people. I used to be one of those lab assistants in the computer lab that I had my own key to the lab and I could go in whenever I
Mhm.
wanted. And I really enjoyed helping people, but I didn't think that was like a career. I didn't think you could do like a help people for a living in technology. I mean, I knew about teachers, but it always felt like something where
Mhm.
I could be helping others like in a more direct way. And then when I went to college, of course, since I had that lab experience, I became like a lab assistant in college as well.
Mhm.
Again, helping people. And then over time for me, what happened was I eventually got a job in technology, starting out in graphic design, but then it always involved with the technology aspect of even that. So, but then since I had that joy and experience of teaching, I always picked up training, on the side. That was always like my side gig, which is what we call it now
Great.
at LinkedIn. And then eventually I started, as I'm looking for just additional revenue opportunities, I looked into, I know that colleges sometimes needed teachers. And so I asked somebody that I knew was teaching at a college, hey, how did you get into that? And they told me, and then, that's how I got that experience. While I was in college, I realized that the videos would be really helpful to my students because, I would often teach something and then I would stop and then folks would try to do whatever I was doing. And I realized that a lot of times I'd have to teach something like 2 or 3 times. So I realized, well, if I just record myself doing the thing, then they
Mm.
can always have that as a reference. If maybe they didn't come that day, they could still go look at that. So that's kind of my progression. And then eventually I got into like doing courses. So you actually, I'm surprised you went much quicker. So do you think you always had that teaching kind of desire in the background, even when you were younger? Because you did mention it at some point.
Okay. I mean, I told you how my journey got started. Honestly,
Yeah.
it
Uh huh.
was a forceful. Okay, so
Hmm.
I belongs to a very humble family. I lost
Hmm.
my father at the age of 7 years, and I reached to a situation where I have to teach to fund my own education, and that too like at the age of 10 years. So I was like, I do still remember that I taught three students for 1 month for $1.50. So that
Wow.
was my first earning I remember, and that was, I was in like a sixth standard. That's how my
Hmm.
journey got started into the teaching. And then it was like, I know that I can fund my education by teaching people, so I started teaching people at those age of very young age of like 12 years, 13 years. I was like teaching people for 2 3 hours a day. And
Hmm.
then initially I was teaching students for math, science. Then it was keep on going, like then I moved to the college engineering, and then I taught people like who is like juniors to me. And that's the journey until unless I
Hmm.
got a real job in IT. And
Hmm.
then I stopped that because I got a one full-time job, and I thought like that everything is sorted in life now,
Hmm.
so let's just continue with the job. That's how it started. But as I said, like the spark was there since childhood, right? Because I grew like teaching people. That's how I grew. So now I mean, like as I said, and then the transformation point, or you can say transition point, came in like 2020, where I thought of like going online. So
Hmm.
that point where I got the audience and I got a
Hmm.
platform where I can teach, I can talk, and people will be there to listen me. So
Yeah, and I think
that's how.
everybody saw, all the sort of learning platforms saw a huge jump during the pandemic when people were at home and they
Mm,
had more time and everybody felt like they could take that up with learning. And so that's pretty interesting. I do like that you always done it. You kind of found it again. I do think that teachers are almost like always natural teachers. Like it's something that may not be your career because I think I don't know that a lot of people end up working in the career that they maybe went to in college. But yeah, for both you and I, like they were ways of making additional revenue. I have a lot of kids, so I always had to make extra money, and so that's what funded a lot of the things that I needed to get done as well. So not as much necessity, I think, as you, but yeah. But I always enjoyed it. Like when I was helping others, it always felt great. Like wow, okay, I'm doing something really positive here. It's more than just making money. I'm helping somebody be able to afford something better in their lives, and that's always the most fulfilling things. Like once I realized that's something that I really enjoy, then when an opportunity arose that I could just do that all the time, I'm like, this is sort of the most fulfilling thing that I've ever done. You do work building things. I work for Tribune Interactive, which is like a network of newspapers. I created like a network of radio and TV websites, and those things are great, but nothing compared to the joy of when you get a note from somebody like you mentioned. You get a note from somebody that says, "Hey Ray, thank you so much. You really changed my life. I'm able to afford a life that I wasn't able to afford before. Thank you. Your courses, made a difference. Like nothing compares to that. I think, anyways. At least for me, I know that some people really enjoy product more, but for me, it's always been that. Like, wow, I can. You mean I get paid for helping people? That's great, and I can like. You could really see like a life change, right? So that must happen to
thank
you, as you mentioned.
Th- that's completely true. I mean, and whatever you said, Ray, only a teacher can understand it and can feel it. I mean,
Hmm.
just money is a secondary. Money eventually we all are making, as I say. That okay, even by teaching someone, that's okay. The day we start a course, probably they give you some money and probably you feel like it's done. But honestly, the joy comes when somebody come back to you after the course and say that okay, thank you so much, because of you I got some XYZ package, and that
Yeah.
has changed completely. I mean, a lot of times, I mean, people come back, and I always still say them that money does not give me that happiness. When you call me back and say that this helped you, the kind of happiness which we get while those calls, I mean, that is like immeasurable. Because even when you teach, or when you, I mean, when you try to train someone on something, some point of time you might feel that okay, because you know the thing, so you feel like that okay, you're not doing anything great, right? Because
Hmm.
you are probably teaching the same topic again and again, so you might feel that there is nothing new which I'm doing it. But when somebody grasps that knowledge and got their dream jobs and etc., then it again reinforces that we are doing something exceptional, and that is like we
Yeah.
should keep on doing it. That's the motivation.
Absolutely. And I think that for both of us, finding the thing that we really enjoy doing is what helped us sort of get to where we were going. But I can also, like, I don't know about you, but I can also really relate to people that were like me. I always think when I'm, this is one of the things that they actually taught us at lynda.com slash
Mm.
LinkedIn, that when you're teaching somebody, you're supposed to try to think about maybe a specific person, or maybe yourself when you were learning something. That's something that I do all the time. Like when I'm teaching, I'm like, what was it like when I didn't know this topic, and what did I feel, and how do I convey that I'm talking to a person? I'm not talking to a huge audience of 10,000 people, 100,000 people. I'm talking to somebody who was you when you were trying to improve yourself. And what kind of conversation, would you have with an individual, as opposed to just, oh, it's just about the course. That's why I think, I love the feedback of teaching. Sometimes you get more immediate feedback. So, but just that sort of the ability to have that conversation with a person. And when I'm recording, I try to think of that. Like, what would I think? Like, am I being clear to myself at the time that I was starting to learn this? Or I don't know if you've ever been in a conference where you knew the topic that somebody was talking about, but you could tell that that person forgot what it was like not to know it. And they're explaining it in a way that for a beginner, it would be really difficult to understand. So I'm always trying to place myself in that mindset. Like, what was it like? Do you remember how hard this was to learn and how long it took you and the frustration?
I
So that's something that
totally
I
agree.
definitely do. Yeah.
Agree. I mean, even when I normally teach, I feel like the audience or the person who is listening to me is a layman. He doesn't know
Hmm.
anything. So whatever be the point probably I am putting forward, I try to create the entire context around it. So I don't comfortable in assuming the thing that okay, he might know this. So
Hmm.
probably that's what the same thing I also feel like. I consider that the someone as a layman only. Although might be sometimes you might have another chance that it might be a little redundant information, but
Hmm.
I feel that over communication is good rather than there's a gap in the communication sometimes.
Yes.
So,
That's true. So we have a really good question either here from Maurice. Did either of you
mhm.
always have a passion for the subject, or a passion for is it the passion for the teaching that drove you forward? What keeps you excited and coming back, especially if you feel like you're an introvert like myself? Now, I don't know if you're an introvert, Deepak, but I am totally an introvert. I took one of those introvert tests, and I was like way at the whatever extreme end of introvertedness. I don't think that you can tell. And sometimes I get people telling me, "Hey Ray, I can't believe you're an introvert," and I'm like, "Yeah, you should watch me at parties. I disappear." so, so what's the
So
experience like for you?
yeah,
Yeah.
you said it right, but I mean, probably I might not be the right person to answer this question because I feel like I'm an extrovert. So I
Oh,
love
okay.
to
All
talk
right. Interesting.
wherever I go. Although I'm very bad in the parties. So
Yeah.
as you mentioned that I try to run away. I don't like to dance. So I want to be the someone who is at the, you will find it at the corner of the wall
Yes.
when this dancing and all happens. So I'm not that person, but yeah, when it comes to the talking, I love it. But still,
Mhm,
as he asked, so the one thing which bring me every day is like, am I making change to someone's life? Okay, that is the most important point, because
mm,
when you become a teacher is above all money and everything. Teacher is
mhm,
someone who is carrying the discipline, who is carrying the values. And his teacher is like your parents. Teacher is like your mother, right? So
mhm.
every mother try to feed their children, right? They know that their children is hungry and they have to feed them whatever, uh, all the tantrums your kid is doing, irrespective of that. Same thing is with the teacher. Once you get into the shoes of the teacher, you feel like that this person doesn't know, and I have to make him aware or make him learn this concept, for example. And that is the passion that brings you every day and keep you doing the same thing like the parents do for their children. That's what
Mhm.
I personally feel like is.
Yes, definitely. And I think that having that perspective while you're teaching is what makes you, I don't know, that's really, I think, what makes you a better teacher, to think of something that drives you. And I think, like Maurice was saying, that is it the subject or the teaching? I think it's both. Sometimes it's a new subject because as you get involved in learning, you'll find that you really love to learn new things. That's so almost like your fuel. But then the delivery of that fuel has effects that come back to you. So that sort of you don't necessarily get a lot of immediate feedback, especially when you're teaching like a video course. You record the course, you put it out there, it does well or it doesn't for whatever reason. So you put content out and then you get feedback afterwards. So you never sort of begin to do it because of that feedback. But that's something that gives you additional fuel, I think, later on. That's what keeps you going forward. The combination of, I really love learning new things. And wouldn't it be great if I could help somebody understand this a little better? I think that's sort of what it's like for me. I don't know about you.
Yep, totally makes sense.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the importance of continuous learning. So you and I learn for a living, basically. I think that that's one misconception that people have is that I do teaching for a living. I think in reality, I do just a lot of learning. So we're both professional learning. According to Stack Overflow, the survey that they do once a year, 75% of developers say that they learn something new at least each year. How do you deal with this extra responsibility? Because it's hard to have to stay up with the industry, everything that's going on, especially AI that's moving so fast. So how do you deal with that extra responsibility? I got to stay, ahead, but then I also need to develop content around that.
So there are two aspects in this. The aspect
Mm-hmm.
one is like, let's say if you are on a social platform like me and like Ray.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, the biggest drawback of being a little bit on those social medias and all those things is that even if you don't keep yourself updated with the latest technology, you will be wipe out. Okay, simply.
That's true.
And I mean, like, let's say I am in a discussion right now with Ray, and I am very sure that Ray will bring up something like AI, generative, something like that. And
Yes.
if, imagine if I'm not aware of it, what's going to happen? So, if you are social, probably you cannot escape. So, you have to do it. I mean, by default. So,
Mm-hmm.
so this is a kind of a person. This is a first kind of a person. There's another type of person which is like a normal audience, who is not so much like a teacher, or who is not very much social, and like does not have that big audience, and so they don't have that pressure. But still, I mean, like still for those people, I mean, as I said, technology is important to keep on upgrading. Probably what the trick which I generally do is like, at least I block some number of hours every week for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's say for example, like I keep at least 4 hours a week that I'm going to study for 4 hours. Maybe I do it for 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day, and then I somehow cover that 4 hours. But I try to keep some specific number of hours that is minimum I need to do. So probably you
Mm-hmm.
can. If you're not comfortable with the 4 hours a week, you can start with a 1 hour a week, maybe. That
Hmm.
at least you're going to spend a 1 hour a week. And even if you're not comfortable with 1 hour a week, break it down into 15 minutes a day, probably.
Mm.
And
Yeah, I think like
then
for
probably at least slowly you will make change. And then see, everything is getting compounded. The moment you start learning new things, you get, I mean, get in love with that over a period of time, and automatically your time automatically will get increased. And that's
that's
how
true.
you
So
will eventually be getting yourself updated over a period of time.
yeah, definitely making sure that you make it part of your every week or every day to have a commitment to learning. I know when I had some employees, one of the things that I did was I would tell them, hey, you need to spend at least, like you said, 4 hours a week. I want you to learn something. And then when we meet next week and we have our one on one, I want you to tell me what you learned. That way you create a sense of, just somebody to check up on you to make sure. So you really do need that. Like I know some people need to have a goal or a target. Sometimes I think the best way to learn is to try to explain it to other people. So
Yeah.
if you have a meeting coming up, say, hey, in this meeting, I'm going to show you whatever it is. And you'll find that you'll never, for me, I never quite understand something as well when I have to explain it to somebody else. So that's a fantastic technique. If you have a meeting, or if, it could be something like, okay, I'm going to go on YouTube and next week I'm going to teach about something. It doesn't have to be something that you're completely clueless about. It can be what
Mm.
I always call this like the 50% solution. Like you could always learn 15% of something that you have, 75% knowledge off, and it's much easier, or whatever it is, 85%. Sorry, my percentages are off, I think. Uh, and so if you can learn something that's a little bit of a stretch but not too much, then you can make sure that you have a target that you can work towards, whether it's, I'm going to teach this, I'm going to offer this at the next meeting, or there's a meetup group, I'm going to go talk about this new feature. By the time you get there, you're going to have learned it enough better than you thought you knew. And that's a fantastic technique that I use. I don't know if you do something like that, like having a target and
Yeah,
then
I
you know
mean, honestly, for me it's quite routine, so probably I don't do that method. But I do something else. What I do is, like, I try to block the calendar first of all.
hmm
So first thing which somebody can do it, if it's find hard to find the time, at least go and block the calendar, put
hmm
it, because that's how somehow, because we don't block the calendar for learning, we do it for every other thing but not for the
that's true.
learning. So just go
Yes.
and block the calendar, saying that okay, this is 1 hour or at least 15 minutes. I'm going to do it every day. Okay, or whatever be
Yes.
your frequency and all. So you
hmm
decide it, and if you, I mean, go out and write a blog. I love to write sometime.
That's
So
fantastic.
I read it and I write a blog. Simple. So,
hmm
or else you can, even if you cannot write a blog, at least do something that you like. You can write a 5 line of post around it and do
hmm
it.
Yeah, it can be
So
as simple
that
as a
will be the
post,
trick.
and yeah, that
Yeah.
process of having to explain it somehow will just help you have to,
Yeah.
I'm doing some content on GitHub, and
And
it's, for example, like all the special files that you have to generate, like the contribute.md, the readme
yeah.
file, the license file. Like I'm talking about all those files. And as I'm learning that I didn't know about a couple of files that are in there that I if unless I had to explain it, I didn't know. So I could very well now write a post on every file that you have to include for a GitHub project. That would
and
be a good post. So something like that.
exactly. And actually, it's a reward system. Honestly,
Mm-hmm,
you learn something, you go post it, you will get the likes, comments. So that feel like you are winning something. It's a reward
mm-hmm.
system for you, and that will drive you to go next, read and write another post to get more likes and more
Like
engagement.
interaction,
Because
engagement. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So,
For a lot of people, this is
but
also important.
yeah. So, see, speaking about all the different areas that you talked about, you have a YouTube channel. You have, like, you write your own blog, which is pretty popular. You do amazing LinkedIn posts. I mean, we're talking your posts get hundreds of likes and lots of engagement. So you're doing really well. And I know that that is fuel. Look, the 3,000 likes. That's amazing. 150, retweets
So
or reposts. That's amazing. And you have like a really good strategy for posting. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like what sort of how you expand into these different areas, and maybe a little bit about your strategy for posting. That's been so fantastic for you.
thank you so much. So I mean, I love to write, and like over a period of time, like I mean, what I say, I mean, my last post, yesterday's post, I got like
Yeah,
300,000
308.
impressions.
Oh, 300,000.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, impressions. I mean, like, and if you see that image in that post, actually, that actually image from my last quarter, that got a
Hmm.
1.6 million impressions.
Wow.
That one
Wow.
post only.
So, okay, how did
So
you get started with that? Like, how did you get to that level? Like, what's been maybe some secrets of making something like that successful? Because a lot of people post something and nobody sees it, and then they're like, "Oh, this is horrible. I'm not getting anything, or I'm not getting any kind of reaction back." So, what's been your strategy there?
see, the only important thing is consistency. You need to
Mm-hmm.
show up every day and you need to write, and rest automatically will be taken care by the LinkedIn algorithm. That's what I feel,
Mm-hmm.
because it's nothing that like automatically works on the LinkedIn. It's not that
Yeah.
you wake up on a one Sunday and you thought that you're going to write a one viral post and everything will done. No, it will not going to work out, because slowly, I mean, there is an algorithm, honestly. I mean, in as we are in the AI world and like all, so we understand how it works. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
you type a one post, probably slowly when you start writing it, you have something in your mind and you generally talk around a one or two three topics around it, and it will try to create an audience around it. And then
Mm-hmm.
automatically your audience get built over a period of time, and your LinkedIn algorithm also understand that this content probably is suited to these kind of an audience. And over
Mm-hmm.
a period of time when you continuously write it, probably it will find a right audience for you, and will, I mean, I'll push your content to those kind of an audience who loves these kind of thing. Probably, let's say, for example, I love talking around the data engineering, and let's
Mm-hmm.
say I am the one who talk about data engineering, and I try to be someone who shares a lot of free content. Example. So then,
Mm-hmm.
probably it will take me to those audience which are interested in data. Also, those audience which are interested in collecting the free material. Getting the point. I mean, just a pointers. So, in short, you need to be consistent, you keep writing, and automatically when you analyze it, what is working for you, what is not working for you. See, I tried so many things. I tried to copy others post as well, which is like a viral, but it didn't
Mm-hmm.
it didn't go viral for me, because probably my audience taste is different.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that I learned over a period of time. And if you see my posts, I ensure that all my posts are genuinely something which is written by me. And I tell you, most of my posts which goes viral is something which I wrote on my own without any inspiration from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's
That's amazing. Yeah, and you have over 147,000 followers on LinkedIn, and you're clearly on other social media. So nobody starts out like that way, but I do like some of your tips. Like, pick a lane, which is, stay on topic, because that's your audience, and that will grow as people find you, and you are consistent posting and learning about what's working and what's not working. Those are the main things
yeah,
that
because
that I heard.
because Ray, the second thing is like, you don't just want it to be having 100,000 followers with zero money, right?
Right, right.
Eventually, eventually you should have a goal, right? There is no point in saying that okay, I have like a 1 million followers, and but like my revenue is zero out of that.
Hmm.
So if you do XYZ random thing on every other post,
Hmm.
probably good for just accumulating the number of followers, might not be good for your taking to the next level.
Mm. And I think the next level, as you mentioned, is really creating an audience around the things that you do, because then that will
It
lift up
has
all
to
your
be,
pull.
yes,
Yeah, go ahead.
Ray, it has to be USP, right? It has to be USP driven. For example, when, let's say for example, when somebody has to talk about the Azure and data engineering, The one name that should come is mine. That's
Hmm.
my motto,
Hmm.
right? And if I able to put that, my work is done. Simple.
Wow,
I mean,
that's
I
amazing.
don't
Yeah,
want to talk
easier said
about
than
10
done though,
different
because I
things.
mean, if there can only be one number one. There can only be one Chuck Norris who knows like karate and whatever it is. There can only be like one person that is the person, and I think you have
I mean,
done a really good job of being the Azure cloud advocate person.
see, I overheard a lot of people in my office and in my circle is saying, you are the one who is going talking every day Azure, 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 Azure. And I love that.
Hmm.
Reason being is that that's creating an image, right? Because if somebody need to know anything or need any help, need any courses, need anything XYZ, they know that for
Hmm.
Azure, this is the person to reach out. That's it. And my work is done.
That's great. So you did mention about setting time aside for learning. So what else do you have in your typical week? So you've got courses that you're doing, you've got posts, you've got YouTube channel, live streams that you're doing right now. What's the typical sort of breakdown of like all the things that you do?
I mean, honestly, I am a workaholic. No, I mean,
That does help.
so yeah, so it's, and I think workaholic would be the wrong term. Probably I was so much passionate, you can say. So it's
Yeah.
more of a passion. So I mean, in a week, I usually don't make a bigger plans. So I usually try to have my own sessions on the weekend that is fixed. That in the morning I have a 3 hours of a live session. Saturday live 3 hours. Sunday. So that Saturday Sunday is my booked in the morning. Weekdays I have to write the blog post on the LinkedIn. So every
Hmm.
day, I mean, I generally don't write on every day. So I take a day, Monday to Friday, any one of a day, whenever I
Hmm.
get some time, and I try to write the post for next week completely, and I try to schedule it, because otherwise it's tough to every day go and write
Hmm.
it. So I do that, like I write all the posts in once, and next day I know that okay, next day I have to come and just copy paste, maybe if I'm not scheduling it. So I'm aware of that, that okay, my next week posts are ready. So I
Hmm.
do in a one shot, because I feel like when we get into the mood of writing, I should write completely. It should not write
Hmm.
every time. I have to just make up a mind half an hour what to write. So when it comes with the flow, let's finish it off. So
That's right.
that's
That's
what
right.
I do. For that, making, I don't, at these days I'm not putting too much energy on YouTube videos, because I got occupied with other course recordings. So,
Hmm.
and then those days I'm writing few scripts
Hmm.
for LinkedIn courses, and then do some recording for my other courses. So that's how my typical week is, which is very hectic at some point of time.
Yes, and I think
Considering
I
yeah,
sorry,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
and considering I work 9 to 6.
96. Okay, yeah, that's great. I mean, and it does help to enjoy work.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna say that I'm a workaholic, but I really enjoy like the work that I do. And again, I think it's finding something that you really enjoy that makes it easier because you always want to
mm,
get back into it. Oftentimes, like if I have something that I'm really passionate about doing, I have a hard time sleeping because I want to finish that thing or I want to go back to it and develop it a little bit more. So for me,
true.
I do find it like you easier to focus on like some of the writing on a single day if at all possible and trying to schedule things. But that grind is a little bit challenging sometimes because there is a lot of things that kind of pull you in different directions. So I like your ideas of having like a schedule and a structure, and then putting aside time to focus on something like writing. I think it's great advice. So, what would you tell somebody that is thinking about perhaps monetizing their expertise? Maybe they have a little bit of a social media pop, sort of following. What would you advice be for somebody who's trying to monetize that expertise in a particular domain?
I think there are few few common techniques to go and
Mm-hmm.
monetize your content. One is either start blogging. So let's
Mm-hmm.
say if you have some good followings on the LinkedIn, so you share your blog URLs here and you redirect the people to read those blog, and on the blog you might have those coming the Google ads, and through that you can learn, I mean you can earn something. Another would be is like if you're comfortable in someone teaching the people, because that is an
Mhm.
art, to be honest. So if you feel that you're comfortable in doing that, probably you can make your video courses. So one way is like you come up with making a video courses. If you feel that probably you're not so good in recording, maybe you can teach live. So maybe
Mhm.
you can generate some live uh, cohorts. Maybe even if you're not comfortable in doing it, but you're comfortable in probably in one to one, so you might open up for like a one to one consultancy kind of thing, where like you say that career guidance or like helping people to understand something, that one to one kind of consultancy teaching, whatever you want to call that, also you can do.
Mhm.
uh, Maybe you can reach out to some another social medias as well, like putting the content on the YouTube, and then you wait for that to get you get into the YouTube ad program, and then you can earn something out of that. But again,
Mhm.
all those will be, that will be a little less, because if you are from the technical side, probably the number of audience on the YouTube is not that much for technical
Mhm.
content. So you need to remember one thing as well. And again, whatever you do on the technical side, you have a less number of audience. So if you compare yourself with someone, any blogger, YouTuber, LinkedIn influencer, anyone who is from another stream or another uh, area, probably that would be the wrong comparison. Maybe you're
Mhm.
comparing yourself with some stars from the I mean Hollywood, filmmaking, comedy, entertainment, those stuff, they will always have a huge, huge audience. So you cannot compare yourself with that. Okay. Because
Yeah.
if you start doing it, probably you will feel quite demotivated. So that is the most important thing. This is a
Mhm.
normal biggest problem in any influencer journey, is that at start you try to look those bigger numbers and you feel that you are not able to reaching that, and that will, I mean, stop your journey. So you don't have
Mhm.
to do that.
Yeah, I think that
So
definitely, starting to publish. I know there's this great YouTube channel where I think the tagline is always like just press record, like just start producing. And I think that you need to give yourself permission to get better at doing something because you're not going to be great. Trust me when you first start. I need to, for example, for this live stream, this is episode now 31, I think 30 or 31. And when I first got started, there's so much on me, nervousness of making sure that I have everything ready, that I knew how to prepare, that I had all my questions like written out, that I had all my technical setup, and uh, it took me a while to be really comfortable with what happens when the connection breaks. Like, what do you do then? Like, what happens when whatever happens? So I think that there's a little bit of a learning curve to getting to be good at something. And you need to go through the process of that. So if it is for me, like I told you, my journey was I started just teaching people at school for free. They weren't paying me anything. Then I turned that into a money making venture by going to college and getting a job where I got paid to help people in exactly that way. Then I found side jobs, like people that knew that I knew the hardware and the software. They would hire me for courses, one-on-ones. And then that turned into additional opportunities to teach in college. And then that turned into a book deal my first book deal that I got. And at every step I was always, I don't know if you do this, but I was always thinking, okay, what else can I do with this? And I that's where I mentioned that I decided, oh, if I can record videos for my students, that would be great. Well, you can publish that on YouTube. That can be one of the ways that you get it. But you need to get through sort of like the beginning parts are all going to be you figuring out the details of what you're doing. So now for these live streams that I do, it's so second nature. I used to block out my entire morning before the day that I was doing these live streams. Now I don't even do that. I can get everything ready. I have all my questions like pre-written. I know how to do the work in the most efficient way. So I'm never thinking about the infrastructure of the thing that I'm doing. I'm always thinking now about the content, like how make sure that I have good questions, make sure that I have researched the person that I'm talking to, try to pick a good topic. Like those are more important. Whereas before it was all about, oh my gosh, how do I use the software? How do I create thumbnails? How do I like the technical things are something that are going to kind of lower in importance as you start doing something more and more. And then the quality of what you're teaching will be better, and that's the thing that is going to get you more success, but you have to go through that process of getting used to things, right?
Totally agree. And even, I mean, you pointed out right that probably people initially more concerned about how is my background, how is my mic, how is my
Yeah.
camera. People don't care, honestly. People need the content. Honestly, when you search some solution on YouTube, you don't care how the voice is coming. You are so much concerned about that whether you are getting that solution or not, right?
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that is the intention. Second thing is like the confidence. You need to be confident about yourself that you know something which can be monetized. I'm telling
Mm-hmm.
you from my own experience. I mean, a lot of people told me that I should start a one-to-one consulting kind of thing. Okay, like a
Mm-hmm.
career guidance or something. This is the time when I started writing on the LinkedIn, and I hardly like a 10,000 followers, something like that. And those days, I just keep the price of. You will laugh at me. I keep a price of $2. Okay,
Wow.
for a half an hour
I'm
book,
not
you are
laughing
talking
at
to
you,
me.
but no.
Okay, and
There's a
like,
great, I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, but there's a fantastic movie called The Magnificent Seven. I don't know if you've ever seen this. It's a Western, an old Western. There's this great part where they go look for a guy that's going to help them in this upcoming battle that they have. And this guy is in a house and he's chopping wood. And they're starting to talk to him, and they talk to him about all the jobs that he did previously. And he says,
hmm,
"Oh, I remember I got paid $50,000 for that job." And then they say, "Oh, we also heard about this other thing that you did." And he said, "Oh yeah, I got paid $20,000 for that job." And then they said, "Well, all we can offer you is like room and board and maybe like $10 a week or something like that." And they look at him, and he's like a little bit deflated, and they start leaving, and then he calls them back and he says, "You know what I'm doing today? I'm chopping wood for my breakfast. So today, room and board plus $10 a week, it's a great deal." So sometimes like that little like
right,
the
right,
amount doesn't matter. Sometimes
yeah,
you're in a place where you just gotta, hey,
yeah.
when I first started helping people, I you know I didn't ask for any money. When I first did my very first LinkedIn course, I'm like, I don't care what they pay me. I didn't even ask what they were gonna pay me. I just want the experience because I know that I
Hmm.
can turn this into something else later on. So sometimes like you gotta chop wood for your breakfast, and that's fine. And
Right,
sometimes eventually, if you
right.
know that that's valuable and that you can leverage to something else, I think that's the secret.
Exactly. And until unless you go out, you never know. I mean, the example which I'm talking about is like a $2 for half an hour talking. I mean, booking a call with me. Trust me, when I post this on my LinkedIn, I got completely booked for our next 1 week in first 15 minutes.
Wow.
Okay. And I was like, and I was thinking like, who the hell going to pay $2 just to talk to me? Who the am I?
Yeah. Yeah.
and, and the same thing happened when I started my first course. Like, who is going to pay me to learn from me? Something like that. So
I know. I
you
know.
never know until unless you go and try. Okay. So
Yeah.
probably you might not value yourself, but for you, I mean, you might be the kind of a dream model for someone else who is watching you, probably. So you never
Mhm.
know. So please, if you are the someone who is listening this conversation, and if you are in doubt whether you can monetize your content, or like you are in a doubt that who will going to buy from you, get out of that.
Mhm.
Just go and publish whatever the stream the way you want, and let it go, and let's see practically how much it is coming.
Yeah, and I think that was also really important for me. I remember when I told you my progression, and I was doing just training like you, training one on one, helping some people out that needed some training at that time. At that time, it was like Illustrator or Photoshop, and then I moved up And occasionally you'll find out that whatever you did at some point will come back and pay dividends in a way that you perhaps didn't expect. So one of the people that I trained 10 years earlier, right, I met later on when I was teaching in college, and that person worked for a book publisher, and they remembered me because they appreciated the work that I had done with them and I had helped them. And so they came and said, "Hey, I think you would be great for a book for this company that I'm working with." Does that ever happen to you? Like you do something, you're not doing it because you're necessarily trying to make the most money, but stuff kind of comes back, like the opportunities when you're ready, they show up, and if you have a progression and have prepared yourself, you're going to get more opportunities later on if you just get started.
I completely agree with you. See, it's all about like, I mean, if you want to be successful, you have to try so many things. You might feel that this is not working right now or immediately, but it is trying to create a map for you. Maybe
Mm,
this is one of a milestone probably which is needed to reach to that level. I mean, honestly, I thought like I'm wasting a lot of time on watching a YouTube video. Okay, and one video has changed my life. I was
mm,
watching this video, and like that video was talking about how to start up online earning by writing a blog. Okay,
mhm,
and one line that guy said towards the end, and his line was, I still remember, his line was that whoever is listening this video, 99.9% of the people still don't trust and not going to write the blog, and only 0.1% will going to write it, and
mm,
and probably they are the one who would get successful. And that line hits me. I watched this video. In next half an hour I bought the one domain, so
mhm,
that I thought like I am going to write blog anyhow. I even not sure that on what piece I'm going to write. And that day has changed everything in my life, trust me.
mm,
I mean,
mm.
everything got changed. I started writing blog. I spent 6 months on writing the blog. Then I got luckily popular. I started LinkedIn. I get popular. I make Udemy courses. I made LinkedIn courses, and like
That's it.
things.
Mm,
But again, you see that one video watching probably has put giving me all this dividend somehow.
mm. So yeah, maybe we can inspire the next person to go ahead and be that. I know totally what you mean. That
Yeah,
sometimes you teach something and then only a few people or just the one person takes advantage of it, and that you oftentimes you don't know what's happened to that person until much later. And
yeah.
yeah, I think that
I
be
mean,
the 0.01% that takes advantage of
yeah,
the.
I mean, the important is that taking the step, because he was pointing that only, that we all hear good things, we all know what, how something great can be happen, but we
Mhm.
don't do that. And he just pushed me so hard that I should take that step.
Yes, it's
So
like sometimes I remember when I was growing up, my dad had, I was born in Panama, and we were like in Ecuador at the time, and there's a lot of people from Panama that were getting basically political exiles, and my dad had a lot of people at the house uh, all the
mm,
time that were from Panama that were exiled for XYZ reasons, a lot of them journalists. And I
okay.
remember meeting a person that I called my uncle. It wasn't really my uncle, but he was that close to me and my family. But I remember that my dad told me, this best friend that I have, he was one of the people that I had in my house. I had 12, 20 people at my house, but this is the one person that appreciated it enough to, I don't know, really keep up with me. And he became a great help to me. Like that sort of perspective of you're helping somebody. And as I mentioned, eventually, I got a book deal out of somebody that I helped a long time ago. And I wasn't doing that to help him to get a book deal. I was just helping him out. So sometimes like doing things selflessly can yield will I guarantee you will yield dividends that you are not even aware of if you do things from the right perspective. And those are the special times I think when that one person changed your life, Deepak. And hopefully maybe there'll be a 0.01% person today that gets a little bit of inspiration from something like this. So, what do you think? We have a great question from Khalil. What do you think about the future of AI in both software and developing and teaching? Can it replace people or at least change the rules? What's the best movements for a software developer to survive his her job in the future? What are your thoughts on this? Because this is pretty prevalent now, I think.
uh, I think we're still not in the era where AI is going to replace the humans in the job.
Hmm.
I think that day is still quite far, I feel.
Hmm.
I mean, you should be in the position where you leverage yourself with the AI technology, but still you understand one thing. I mean, as I'm coming from a data background, so AI is nothing without the data. All what
Hmm.
AI is doing is like it needs the data. The more data it has, the more accuracy probably it will have. So eventually, end of the day, data, it needs the data to be get feeded in, okay, from the variety of sources. And probably that's where we as a data engineer comes into the play. Although, I mean, a lot of people is fearful that, right, that AI comes and then all the code which they are writing as a software engineer, all the data analysis which they are doing, which they are like a Power BI using Tableau,
Hmm.
writing SQL queries or anything, probably all this will be taken care by the AI, and AI will write the code for them. That's okay. Anyways, whether the AI comes or not, anyways, we are eventually moving towards a no code or low code world where people don't want to write the code. And still most of the times you're not, I mean, your business knowledge is still there. So I don't think so that people will be so easily replaced with the AI. I mean, I know a lot of companies which are still not comfortable in sharing the data. Like in many companies the chat gpt is disabled. So
Hmm. Hmm.
because the clients are not pretty sure that how ChatGPT is going to utilize their data, probably to train. I mean, let's say I have a like a 100,000, I mean 1,000 files, huge code repository, and if you feel that I want to do some code fixes and etc., and give this entire code to the ChatGPT, and I feel like that AI tool probably will fixes the code for me. That's good, but right, you are making this entire model learning your code, right? And your competitor also can use it, right? That analyze the XYZ company's code, etc., etc., and let's accordingly write some hack, probably, right?
Hmm.
So companies are still, many big companies who is having a more of a confidential information related to the banking, insurance, healthcare, they are still not in a mode where they are completely accepting all this. I mean, forget about the AI. AI is pretty new, right? You talk about the cloud, which is there like last 5 years, and you check it. Lot of banking and those insurance company who don't want to move their core, I mean, their data over the cloud as well. I mean, forget about the AI.
Hmm.
Many companies are out there who is not ready to move the data to the cloud because they don't know, like, they have a security concerns, right? So again, intention is not saying that we should not go and learn AI. I think you should learn, but you should not be fearful of AI. That's
Hmm.
my entire point is that you take AI as your skill set. Okay,
Hmm.
it's like something tool in your pocket which is improving your skill set, which is increasing your power. It is not something which is
Hmm.
working against you. It is something which is making you more skillful. End of the day.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's up to you how you can use it, up to what level. Probably you learn 5 times more technology in much more speed, probably. So it's up to you how you're going to utilize it. But again, if you keep make AI is your enemy, your job enemy, probably you are into the wrong direction. You have to
Yeah.
leverage it. The idea is to leverage that and use it as a weapon along with you.
Yeah, I think that you want to be the person that understands AI, that is a resource about AI and what it can do. I think the more I talk to professionals that are building some of these tools, we had people from OpenAI, from Microsoft, from all kinds of different places in the show, and the more I talk to those people, I think that It's smart to be the person that understands AI and how to leverage, especially in the world of data. But I don't think those tools are anywhere near as ready as people think that they are to replace people. But it is going to make people more productive. So there's going to be sort of a high level of expectations on what you can do as an individual when you are AI assisted. So you're basically like a cyborg now. So you have to embrace that technology and take advantage. I think anytime you see something like this, it's an opportunity for you to be the person that embraces the technology and is the resource that people want to go to learn implementation, to learn how to help everyone be more productive. And that's the secret. Whenever you see things that everybody else is maybe walking away from, you mentioned companies that ban ChatGPT. Be the person that is looking the other way and thinking about how can this be an opportunity, because that's going to be the person that is needed, I think, for for doing things in the future.
That's right. That's completely right.
So thank you so
I
much. I just
totally
want to
agree.
let people
Yeah.
know of a couple of other places where they can learn more about the show. We have a LinkedIn page with all the episodes, a newsletter that goes out every week. So if you missed a show or you wanted some of the links of the things that we talked about, and say like the link to your fantastic course or any of the other things that we talked about, you can check out the newsletter. And then we also have an episode guide, a YouTube playlist, as well as an audio podcast. So next time I'm talking with a couple of gentlemen, Sebastian Wittelick and Zane Hassan, about artificial intelligence and data and how they are the perfect match. We're going to talk about kind of some of these advanced vector databases that are coming out in the market and seeing how, I think you mentioned it as well, Deepak, that the key is the data and how that data gets integrated into the business strategy. So that'll be a great conversation. Once again, Deepak, thank you so much for coming to the show. I had a fantastic time. We went, I think, a little over what we normally do, but that's just because I'm having a good time talking to you about education. What an inspiring conversation, personally, for me. Well, take care. We'll talk to you later.